Okay, so the past 2 days we've been talking about classical conditioning, where you learn by pairing two things together repeatedly. But is that the only way you can learn? No, it's not. Another way is operant conditioning. And operant conditioning, what we're going to do today is take a look at concepts of operant conditioning. And eventually, what you're going to do is you're going to apply these concepts to real life scenarios. So, what is operant conditioning exactly? Well, operant conditioning takes a different look at learning and how else is it that we learn? So here we have B.F. Skinner, which we'll talk about quite a bit when we talk about operant conditioning. And Skinner was one of the ones to understand and essentially name operant conditioning. And essentially what operant conditioning is it's this idea that learning happens when it is followed by either a reward or punishment. And we call this law of effect. Law of effect says, and this concept has been around for a while, law of effect says that you are more likely to do something, you will do something again if you get rewarded. So, how did Skinner use this as a scientific study, or what did he do to show this scientifically? He created what we call the Skinner box, which is what you see here below, and I'll explain how this works in just a second. You may also have called it an operant chamber. So what would happen is you would have rat, rat. Said rat, you can see here pushes bar, gets food. Yay! So rat would push bar, bar would deliver food, rat would eat food. So what we learned or what we would see happening is that the rat would learn to press lever for food. And eventually what that happened was the rat then learned they would pair it with the light, and then the rat would learn if the light was on, you could press the bar and get food. So we call this the Skinner box. And what this proved was that reinforcement strengthens the response. So the more you reinforce, the more the response happens. After you recreate the learned experience, then what you can do is then you can start to shape behavior. So shaping behavior is when you start to reward small behaviors until you get your desired behavior. So for example, what they may have done with this is they may have put the food on top of the lever so that the rat knew that they could go up there and get food. And then the rat starts to realize that once they climb up there and get the food, they can press the bar down to get more food. That would be an example of shaping. So getting them to do these small behaviors before you get them to do the big behavior. In addition, once you've shaped their behavior and created reinforcement, they might learn discrimination as well. We talked about this with classical conditioning. It also happens in operant conditioning. And what discrimination is they can discriminate between two different types of stimulus, or they can tell the difference between two types of stimulus. And in fact, in 2015, they did a study using pigeons, teaching pigeons how to identify tumors in breast tissue. And they found that when done correctly, pigeons could correctly identify the abnormalities within breast tissue. So how do you reinforce then for behavior to continue? Well, we're going to talk about two things that you can do. The first is going to be reinforcement. Reinforcement is you're always going to increase, you're always going to add. The second way that you could use operant conditioning is by using punishment. Punishment is always decreasing behavior. So reinforcement, you're always adding. Punishment, you're always taking something away. So when we're talking about operant conditioning, I either want to increase the behavior, have the behavior continue, or decrease the behavior, have the behavior stop. If I want to increase the behavior, if I want to have the behavior continue, then what I want to do is I want to use positive reinforcement. So that means that I'm going to add a reinforcer because that's going to increase my behavior. So I might add something. So if I'm adding something, maybe I'm adding money, right? I'm giving them something. That's going to be their reinforcer. A negative reinforcer would be taking something away. But if I take something away, then that would also increase your behavior, right? And this one is where it gets a little bit tricky. So I'm taking away something that is a negative stimulus that you would want to be removed to increase the behavior. So for this case, think about the bell or the beep for your seatbelt. You put your seatbelt on to stop the bell from beeping or to stop the tone from making the noise. So you buckle your seatbelt. So you're increasing your behavior by buckling your seatbelt, which is what the car companies want you to do. And the way you're doing that, or the reason why you're doing that, is because you're removing something negative. You're taking away the annoying beeping or buzzing sound. Now, if I wanted to decrease my behavior, so I wanted to decrease the behavior, I'm going to use punishment. Punishment always decreases the behavior. So let's say I'm going to do positive punishment. I'm going to add something to decrease the behavior. So maybe I might yell. I'm going to add a loud voice to decrease behavior. Negative punishment means that I am going to take something away to decrease the behavior. So maybe I'm going to take away your cell phone and hope that that would also decrease behavior. So overall, what we discussed today was operant conditioning and the idea of using either some sort of reinforcement or some type of punishment to increase or decrease or change behavior or to learn. So learning using a reinforcement or a punishment. And this was developed by a man by the name of B.F. Skinner, who created what we know as a Skinner box, which taught not only pigeons but also rats and other animals how to do behaviors for food rewards. And that sums up our lesson for today.